So, everyone, I have been enjoying our chats, but when I tell you, I think that the biggest thing has been being able to hit on subject matter that is transformative, that is impactful, that forces us to think, and more than anything, challenges what notions we may have about the world that we're living in and gives us the tools to be able to create change. And I'm not doing this by myself. In each of our chats, we've been able to have people who are qualified to speak from their lived experiences and teach us a little bit more that is different from what the media may be positioning or what your algorithm continues to feed you. And so today I'm excited because we have someone here that you already know. Believe it or not, you already know. You have been able to benefit from their work. You've been able to experience what they bring to the world. And now you get to hear from them yourself. Alyson Stoner is a multi-hyphenate artist, advocate, and now memoirist. Best known for growing up on screen in iconic roles with Disney Channel, Step Up, and alongside Missy Elliott. But beyond the fame, Alyson has spent recent years reclaiming their story and using their platform to spark honest, healing-centered conversations around identity, trauma, and wellness. In 2025, Alyson released their deeply personal memoir, y'all, the details are below, semi-well-adjusted despite literally everything. You've got to get the book. I hate to break up the bio, y'all. You have got to get the book. Details are below. Get it, get it, get it. It's a candid exploration of child stardom, family violence, religious trauma, and the lifelong journey of self-reclamation. Their work is both bold and tender, y'all. It advocates for mental health reform, safe creative spaces for youth, and the dismantling of harmful industry and institutional practices. It's actually about protecting the kids, not some of the things that distract you from actually protecting the kids. Y'all, Alyson continues to lead through vulnerability, helping others rediscover their own agency, their joy, and belonging on their own terms. I'm so excited to share with you today, Alyson Stoner. Alyson, thank you for being here.
This first time a bio brought tears to my eyes.
Oh
I just first, please, before anything else, that felt like a prayer.
my
Felt
gosh.
so humanizing
It's true.
and so gracious.
Ugh.
I mean, it speaks to the volumes and the depths of your being and experiences to be able to observe and know so many of these layers that are happening. So thank you
Thank you
so
for
much.
putting yourself on the front line for my babies.
Yes,
A
yes.
lot of our community here, they're moms,
Mhm.
and we all are navigating a world with increased exposure for our children to
Yes.
both opportunity, fame, and all of the above. And to know that there's someone like you who's not only survived so much, but is willing to come from that place of healing and understanding to
Mm.
advocate, it's not lost on me, what
And
it
to
takes you to be
equip,
here. And
like
to
you said,
equip.
with the tools and the knowledge, because you
Mhm.
all deserve to know and understand deeply the systems we're inhabiting, the tech
Mhm.
design down to its core features, how that
Mm.
interplays with your young one's neurobiological development. And we'll get into all of that.
Yes, we will. Yes, we will.
Yes.
But also just, I think transparently it's worth saying you're really exposing yourself here because
Yes.
the way that people are coming for anyone who is actually trying to
Mm,
protect children
mm.
and the fact that you are undeniably qualified to speak on this, it is bold. It's why I use the word bold. It's bold and it's brave. And I thank you. I thank you
Mm.
for being willing to be out there. It's tremendous. And your book does all of that. I mean, this book is
Thank you.
like, I got a copy on Friday early.
Mm.
So, everyone be jealous. This is the perks of the business.
Hey.
And again, details are below. By the time you hear this, it should be published. So grab it now. And it's a great, quick, like thorough read.
Mhm.
And this weekend I was like, oh no, like I had no idea, and that's as someone in the industry.
Mhm.
So I want to start where we always start, right?
Yes.
And I want to know for someone who is looking at their kids wanting to attain fame,
Mm.
or someone who is in a world where fame is just held on this high platform, can you just tell me more about your lived experience with actually attaining this stardom, this mega stardom at such a young
Mm.
age?
Whew. If it's all right, there are a couple words within your question that I would love to unpack
Mm-hmm.
along my way to answering the
Please,
question.
please, please.
Okay, great. So when I hear the word attain, what comes up for me is a sense of conscious agency, being able to apply one's will toward some self-declared aim and to ascertain it. And then when I think about a child, I'm not sure that the word attain feels quite relevant for a few reasons. One, of course, at a young age, you cannot actually give informed consent about what you're getting into. Two, you haven't developed your own sense of identity yet. So your map of the world is largely reliant upon your caregivers, the society, etc. And there's no way that a young person developmentally, psychologically, physiologically, can understand the short, mid, and long-term implications of commercializing their maybe passion at home for performing on the mantle, not on the mantle, but like on the staircase. So I might, if it's all right, swap out the word attain with subjected to. And to answer what it was like to be subjected to fame as a young person, now that I've researched for, 7+ years, and I'm coming to you now for context for people listening as both someone with lived experience, but also a certified mental health practitioner, I see this ecosystem very differently. And I notice that we are collectively, inadvertently often, signing up young people to be what I call entered onto the toddler to train wreck pipeline.
Ooh, okay. So I have to tell you, if y'all aren't in the room right now, everyone, even my producer, was like, okay. 'Cause we all had a collective reaction to that because, we all, like, we're all married here, like in our, in this studio, and we have families, and we are in the industry. Hearing toddler to train wreck is absolutely terrifying because there's an understanding as adults, like you said, we're aware, that of outcome, prefrontal cortex, right? Our brain is developed so we can understand sort of the outcome of our decisions better, we hope, right? All of us know, a couple of train wrecks that are still very grown, what I mean, that don't seem to get it. But
self-identified.
Right, self-identified, like Hot Mess Express right here. But that said, most of us understand at least a little more, right? The outcome. But we're also fighting against a world where we are being told that fame is the highest goal, that algorithms are set so that everyone is going to go viral at some point in their life, and you should capitalize and monetize on that by any means necessary. So knowing that that's the messaging and that is told to be the highest goal, tell me more about that. Tell me more about what you mean when you say toddler to train wreck rather than toddler to riches.
Yes. Woo,
I know.
We need
let's
a
get
week.
into it.
We need a week for this.
Right.
I'm moving in.
Yes. Tell me all the things. I'm taking notes.
So to clarify, the term that I use, toddler to train wreck pipeline, is referring to this repeated occurrence of some kind of downward spiral for high-performing children, sometimes in entertainment, but also it could be in athletics. It could be young, quote-unquote, promising academics, prodigies of a sort. And we see very similar patterns of decimated fortunes, experiences of, I don't know if you provide content notes, but maybe at the top of the episode, or this is your friendly content note right now, I'm going to share some terms and descriptions and depictions of things that are challenging and traumatic.
Oh, we will put all the things in there. And just letting you guys know, trigger warning, it is tough stuff. But it's the type of tough stuff that we sit in because we know it enriches us. It's better for us.
And if you need to pause.
Do that. Whatever
if you need to skip ahead, skip ahead.
Your friendly certified mental health professional is giving you your tools you need to absorb this training.
Right. And still make sure you like, comment, and subscribe on the podcast.
Yes, the balance.
Hold all the truths at once.
Yes.
So we see these occurrences of things like sexual trauma and exploitation, financial exploitation, mental health challenges, substance use, abuse, misuse, even suicide. And these elements define my peers and, in some regards, my life. But from the outside, the general public is only ever given a very narrow narrative. So I think in order to answer this question, we have to lay out the landscape. And you named some of the different elements, capitalizing off of talent, etc. But we got to talk about some of these myths that we're all inheriting when we're born into this particular era, in this particular region of the world, the flavor of human experience, and all the particulars of our own individual experience. So toddler to train wreck pipeline, from the outside looking in, I fully understand, let it be known, that it would probably be hard to empathize with this subset of people who are depicted most of the time as reckless, entitled, luxury-seeking and attaining kinds of young people who seemingly have it all. But what if I told you that underneath that facade, there has been a century-old industry ecosystem exploiting the child through labor and other ways, but then concealing it behind that veneer so that when we notice this inevitable downturn, we on the outside
blame the child,
blame the individual, and have no other awareness of what else might be going on.
Okay, so this, I think, is the core of what a lot of people want to know. And I want to just kind of, and correct me if I'm wrong, as a caveat, I think that a lot of people get confused between causation and correlation. So they'll hear something like this and they'll think it's conspiratorial, and it's like, no, things can just be what they are and not be some secret backroom conspiracy. But that's almost scarier because it means that it's normalized when it's not normal. So you are qualified to speak about this, not just from your training, but can you tell us a little bit more? Because you shared some stories about how you kind of got into this space in your book. And I think that would help people kind of contextualize this a little better. You were someone that had talent that was nurtured, right? But talk to us about what that did, what it looked like in this quick explosion to high visibility.
Yes. So full support as parents, guardians, caregivers. If you notice that your young one has a knack for something and you want to help nurture that skill set or provide them opportunities to explore, yes, absolutely. The difference is the industry is not community theater.
That's right.
And the industry involves the commercialization of your child. That means they are no longer a human first. They are now a product of a corporation, and the corporation contractually owns their name and likeness and can determine what they say, what they wear. I mean, if they book a series regular role, maybe for 10 years, their entire childhood. The other component here is, as caregivers, care providers, we're constantly thinking about the wholeness of being, their overall development, all of the different facets, education, making sure to the best of our ability to provide financial wherewithal to make sure they have their basic needs met, healthy social development, to the best of our imperfect ability, attuned caregiving.
Whatever we can do. It's like a mom does it all. We're trying our best.
in all the areas. And with the industry, after I attended a convention, which I thought was just going to be a one-off thing, zero aspirations of being famous, couldn't even spell the word. I was 6 years old. Went to Los Angeles to meet agents, thinking this is kind of a unique and exciting opportunity. But
I mean, you're 6, you have no context for what it's happening.
But even our family, right, had no resources available, no reference points.
Well, so everyone's doing it for the first time. I think a lot of people forget that there's no one out there who's ever been famous that was famous before. It's always the first time. And imagine your first time doing anything in life, whether it is buying a house to having sex to getting married, chances are you fucked it up. Do you know what I mean? So
we got to put a pin in that one and come back to it because I have some fun research points around the experience of fame.
I love the data. You were in the right place.
Okay, great.
So you're going to this convention, with your family. You're then jetted off to LA. read the book, y'all, but tell us high level what happened.
Yes. So when I arrived, you could call it beginner's luck, perhaps, or give lots of credit to the adults who trained me in these performance spaces, and maybe some, I don't know, special sauce that I came into the world with.
Yeah.
But I was able to audition a few times and book earlier on than what most would expect.
Sure.
Now, what this did simultaneously, super exciting and, invigorating, but it also microwaved the process of decision making that my family had to do around every area of our lives.
But that's by design.
It's by design.
If you have that pressure to make a quick decision,
right,
you're more likely to agree to things that may not serve you.
Listen, you said it.
Yeah. Yeah.
You said it. And that's a part of it, of course. So contractually, I now had to be removed from school because I needed to be on set. And of course, some parents may value education in a certain way and try to safeguard, their child's educational pathways to the best of their ability. But when you're trying to tell that to a multimedia conglomerate who says, actually, we just need to get this scene done, even the teacher on set
works for them.
So we've got education that's now been disrupted. Well, let's talk socialization. After age 8 or 9, I worked on the first Missy video, and unexpectedly, the outcome of being recognized, in public
you blew
is
up, yeah.
It was such
huge.
I mean, you can imagine it's bizarre for any adult, but
of course.
I had no map of the world, and suddenly, literally, from age 8, I've never known what it's like to live a day without
anonymity,
people approaching me, a camera recording me, etc. So socializing, instead of being with peers my age and bonding and hobbies, whatever, I either was in competition with the person next to me in the room, or I was navigating what I now know is a parasocial relationship with someone who identifies as a fan. And therefore, I'm kind of learning inadvertently about this customer service mode where when I leave the home, I'm on. I'm ready to serve.
Sure.
Everything for me was filtered through that concept of service, but it was a naive understanding of service because it lacked healthy boundaries.
And the nuance also that you're not placed in this world for other people's purposes, and
That would
having
take me
that
a long time.
Well, I know. I was going to say, and y'all, I just hope you understand that this is also part of why I'm encouraging you to read this book. You'll sometimes hear about, read a memoir because it's just a good story. Yes, the context, your writing is beautiful. You wrote in a context that made it easy for us to understand, apply, and really get the scope of what this could mean for our children while applying the tools. But I want you guys to read this because there's a need for us to recognize sort of the breadth of how insidious this is, that like you don't even realize, kind of like the way I was talking about it with my husband, I was like, it's kind of like when you're in a bad relationship. Sometimes you don't know until you leave that some of these things are like manufactured. It's not just the person I was with, but it's like societal setups where they were affirmed to think that that was right. Like, he thought he was being a provider, but he didn't realize he was being financially abusive, but society told him, but he took care of everything for you, and I feel like when you were talking, I say, because that's how it feels when you're reading the book. When you were talking to me in this book, when you were sharing, in this book about, like you said, this non-crockpot career, this sort of microwave moment, everything was set up in a way where your brain was basically being told that you are a piece to be moved around.
Yes.
How I have a 13-year-old now, and your whole life you're still in the industry. What is this like for a 13-year-old? It's already hard enough.
Of course, yes.
Like
just to be human.
Right, but to arrive, 6 years in at 13 with this sort of awareness, what for you was kind of like, did you realize at that point like something was going on? Like,
that's a great question. And what's coming up is that I think oftentimes we assume a child is just a mini adult. And what I mean by that is that we assume that they have the same cognitive architecture that we do as adults. So when I was 11, 12, 13, and I was still just forming logic,
of course,
and reason, I could only see the surface level.
Sure.
And it was still going through a more, I use the word self-centered just meaning that I couldn't see all of the multiplicity of what was
Of
going
course.
on at that age. So therefore, the experience got deeply internalized
Mm.
as being, the meaning that I made out of it was, oh, then I am a product for consumption. I am insert the next judgment or criticism that I
Sure.
read
It's so
online,
scary. Oh my
and
gosh.
so highly impressionable,
Mhm.
but also taking on these adult roles. And I want to clarify, just because I was in adult workplaces with adult responsibilities does not mean that my brain was using the same kind of decision making
Mhm.
to navigate them. I actually, at best, was only simulating
Sure.
adulthood.
There's no way. Your brain is not developed. It actually
Right.
is not possible.
And so, because it was more of a, in my experience, let's give some specifics like
Yeah.
80-hour work weeks,
Yeah.
navigating kidnapping plots,
Yep.
managing a stalker, all while I'm a minor, those experiences, as you can imagine, are
Mhm.
too much, too soon,
Too
too
big. Too big
intense
for a little person.
for
Mhm.
my mind and body.
Mhm.
So, what's that going to do to any of us who've experienced adverse childhood experiences? We're
Yep.
going to I mean, the human mind and body are fascinating in all the different coping strategies
Yes.
we will explore and lean into consciously, subconsciously
Mhm.
throughout the course of our lives. My coping strategies, I came to understand later, were dissociation.
Mhm.
Basically, the mind and body saying, I need to actually go offline here, disconnect, depersonalize, derealize this experience, compartmentalize what's happening. However, what I didn't know is that when you constantly suppress everything with
Mhm.
no opportunity to process,
Yes.
express, release,
Yes.
well, then it's just somewhere stored in your nervous
That's
system.
right.
And one day later,
It'll come out where you don't want it.
yes, yeah,
That's right.
aches and pains and
Yes.
chronic illnesses
Yes,
and
all the
burnout
things.
and
Your
things.
body will break down, absolutely, and we've
Yeah,
talked about
yeah.
that a lot here, people who've gone through divorce after many
Yes.
years of being
Yeah.
in a certain, PTSD situation,
Mhm.
you'll see it all. So, tell us a little bit more about that because, the time comes where the evolution of a career I mean, you are and I hate to say fortunate because we're in LA, right? Like, you still work in your
Yes, yes.
field,
Mhm.
and so people will and this, I guess, is sort of you can correct me if I'm wrong because you're the expert here, but this is kind of one of the friction points of, child stardom, right? Is
Mm.
you get to still work. Like, aren't you happy? Because I live
Mm.
in LA. People are like, "You have a gig and you're eating. You should be happy." And I'm
Sure,
like,
sure.
"That gig is like people screaming at me for performance art, and I go
Ugh.
home feeling like trash in my studio in downtown." You know what I mean? Like, it's like, this is rough. So, here you are still working, but all this time just dealing with this sort of private struggle. I don't even know if it's private
Mm.
because I mean, it is your thing to carry, even though there should be adults who are sharing that weight with you and or protecting you from it.
Mm.
So, what
If
was it
only.
like, navigating that as you're, wanting to hit the milestones that are normal for a child, right? Developmentally, like wanting to date, wanting to see other
Sure.
people go to school, wondering where, your long-term friendships are, sleepovers, going to the mall, like the normal things, at least in American westernized culture,
Right.
um, in this industry that tend not to occur. What was that like for you? How were you processing it?
Well, I wish I could say that I knew to even ask those
Mm.
questions. The only reference points I had were based on the character scripts I was reading. So when you name things like going to
The
the
mall,
mall,
yeah.
I know about that because I
Mhm.
played a character who did that.
Wow.
When you talk about first kisses, I
Mhm.
know about that because I was filmed during my first kiss with someone, but it also was surrounded by adults who I
Yeah.
didn't know who and then
Yeah.
we had to do how many takes of it. So I had my 7 first kisses that
Mm.
day, and that was, by the way, written by someone else, and I
Mhm.
had no control.
Yeah, usually, like, a 50-year-old white man is, like, writing all the stuff, which
Yeah,
makes you just wonder, if you think
listen.
about the industry, if you're like, "Oh, there's a 50-year-old white man who was like, I wanna write content about an 8-year-old who sneaks away to have her first kiss," you're just kind of like, "I'm sorry, is this something I want my child in?" And why is this what you think is entertainment?
And there are, I believe, caring, ethical,
For sure.
compelling
For
ways
sure.
to articulate these very human experiences.
Mhm.
However, the current system does not reflect those protocols.
That's right.
But we are making strides. We
Mhm.
are making strides. And we can get there.
Yeah, before we get to the strides, because
Yeah.
that's what your advocacy is so important and so powerful. I do wanna go back to, because I want to circle back to what we were going to put a pin in is, right now everyone's trying to make their kid go viral. Like
Yes.
there are some child stars that are, kind of popping up as viral stars. It's sort of this like subcategory
Hmm.
because, I remember the days where in order to get your kid famous, you got to come to LA, you need to
Sure.
audition, you need to stand in a line or maybe a reality show. But now, with your phone, and your kid either emulating adulthood, because that
Hmm.
is a category of entertainment now, well, it always has been, but, more so on the internet, or your kid doing a challenge or, something to that effect, they can have some pseudo form of fame and then your parents can manage it and monetize directly
Hmm.
without the systems.
Hmm.
Can you tell me a little bit more about that from your expertise research? Like, is that safe? It's a democratization of fame that allows it to
Hmm.
remain in the parents' hands, is what some would say. Or is it something
Uh,
that, yeah, I know, I was like, we're
it's
getting
a
on the sound, so I'm like, is it that now it's, we've eliminated the middleman and thus it is better? Or is this
mm,
something where, and everyone now gets a fair shot at the same fame? Or is this something where you're like, increased parameters are required? Or is it case by case? Tell us, what have you seen?
if fame correlated to
Mhm.
better health outcomes and
Mm.
human flourishing, then I would use the phrase democratization of opportunity. But here is what the research shows, specifically about the experience of fame. People experiencing fame have somewhere between, on average, 12 to 14 years shorter lifespan for a number of reasons that we can
Yes,
unpack
yeah.
on our
I'm sure
12
people can
call.
figure that out, you know what I mean? Like,
A
by
lot, a
default.
lot of different experiences there. The second piece of research shows that people who are experiencing fame are 3 to 4 times more likely to die by suicide. And let's clarify, even if you don't experience a high degree of fame, but you're an entertainer, creative in the
High
industry,
visibility. Yeah.
and not even super high visibility, but just working in the industry, the training that I just went through, they presented a diagram where actually it's up to 22 times as likely to be more vulnerable to die by suicide.
That is terrifying.
So that's alarming. And then the third aspect of fame is that it's been shown, the piece of research is by Donna Rockwell called The Phenomenology of Fame. Phenomenology is a super fun word to
Yes, it
Google
is.
sometime.
Yes.
Um, and it showcases that the experience of fame has the same properties as addiction. So, just by those three pieces of
Parameters
research
alone.
alone,
Yeah.
why would we want to hook a child to a
Mm.
drug that is shortening their lifespan and fundamentally altering their neurobiological development? So, there's that.
So it's like, I'm just gonna this is my favorite part about you is you're like, "So I'm just gonna put this little piece of data in the room and y'all can consume as you desire." Right? Like,
Well,
I mean, that is real.
and, we could build on it in so many ways, but I do want to maybe pause and dig into the cultural myths around fame that you've named.
Mhm.
So, these cultural myths have a negative, mm, they can have a mixed effect on all of us, but it certainly includes a negative effect on everyone, not
Mhm.
just the famous person.
Mhm.
Because for every one chosen child who was facing, unlimited rejection in
Yeah.
auditions, but then finally booked the job, there are 900,000 children who actually never even experienced a reward, a
Mhm.
payoff, but
Mhm.
who have now absorbed the pressures and the challenges and are
We're never
wondering,
chosen.
yeah,
Yeah.
right. So, and also just when we think about like specialness and the individualism of our society, how we look at genius as being this solo trek, when
Mhm.
really we know that that had to exist, that was embedded in a community of
A collective,
mentors.
absolutely.
And also, who am I except for all of the different influences of people who have informed my opinion? Literally, who am I except for an extension of everyone else?
That's
We are
right.
also deeply interconnected.
That's right.
So, some of these myths around, early success and capitalize optimization, they also, interestingly, I found correlate a little bit to this individualized spirituality in
Mm.
terms of self-realization being a concept that was not centuries ago. The way we lived out spirituality was far more collective focused,
Mhm.
communal
Mhm.
based.
Mhm.
now as individualism gets threaded deeper and deeper into society, we start to think of divine destiny, purpose
Yes.
as more of this isolated journey. And of
Mhm.
course, absolutely play your role in this
Sure.
larger story. But let's not forget that I'm not just trying to win this game of capitalism at the expense of everyone else.
Oh my gosh.
And I think about fame and when I was 15 maybe. Oh, man, it's wild. I was 15. I couldn't even drive a car. But some people were talking about, like, we need you to take on this persona of diva. And what that's gonna do is it's gonna convince people, that they will want to spend money on whatever projects you release because they buy into the illusion of separation.
Mm.
They see you as pedestalized,
Mhm.
therefore, they open their pockets because they admire, they fawn over, they want a piece of
Mm.
whatever the stories
Sure.
are.
Sure.
I remember in that moment going, something is not sitting
At
right."
15, you just knew there was a disconnect.
It just did not. I felt so uncomfortable
Mm.
that I was supposed to knowingly, I would use the words,
Manipulate.
manipulate
That's the absolute word.
audiences
Mhm.
to buy into myths
Mhm.
so that I could be more successful.
I'm so thankful, like, we'll talk about religious trauma. I was a God girl. I'm
Mm,
so thankful as that's how I would label it in my language, that awareness was there for you. Like, probably changed the trajectory of so much.
yes,
I'm so thankful for that.
right. So
Wow.
these kinds of, deep whatever the discernment is and whatever little angels
Yeah.
scattered across my
Yeah.
life were kinda saying, "Hey, by the way, there's something more here.
But people
Hey."
don't have that.
They don't.
They don't
A
have
lot
that.
of
Your
people
parents
do
are
not.
supposed to be that for you in a lot of ways because we at least have the brain development if we don't have that intuitive,
But have you ever
thing.
heard that research on fame?
Never, never. I mean, literally
No.
never, and the thing about it is, even with the research, a lot of us now, because we engage in social media and being
Yes.
viral and taking pictures of our food, meaning it's integrated in our life to
Mhm.
share, 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 which means you stumble into fame without
Let's talk about
expecting
it.
it. So, yeah, tell us about that. How,
Yeah.
all of us, are aiming to be, near fame and fortune because we think it'll change our fortune.
Sure,
So,
sure.
stumbling
Yes.
into it, like, what do we do?
Well, and also I think some people feel pressured to, reach status just because that's what feels
Right,
necessary to
relevancy, like, or I
survive.
wanna be around, I wanna exist, I wanna be seen, you
I
know?
mean, and that's hijacking our most core needs, right?
Mhm.
So the devices we're holding are, unfortunately, at the moment, maybe not forever, but
Yeah.
currently designed
Mhm.
to hijack some of these fundamental core needs like social belonging and engagement. And so let me take a step back and look at the digital landscape for what it is at the moment.
Mhm.
Similar to joining the industry without a resource
Yeah.
manual, we all held this device in our hands,
I had no idea what it would become. We thought
had
it was just a phone.
no
I thought it was just a phone.
idea.
Yeah.
But now the experiences that were once reserved for people in entertainment are actually, like you said, experiences that anyone with a Wi-Fi connection or a social
Mhm.
media profile are experiencing. Specifically, things like navigating parasocial relationships. When people start to post and share and they get their first message from a stranger,
Yeah.
it's no longer
Yeah.
from the family member. That's an interesting moment. For some, it
Mhm.
might give pause and maybe they want to make their account private. For others, it might kind of play into a sense of pride, like, "Oh, you
Mhm.
you thought
Mhm.
my kid was cute too," or,
Mhm.
"Oh, you thought I was funny in that post." It's gonna have some kind of impact. And in so doing, we're going to now begin to shift away from our fully embodied, authentic version of ourselves
Mhm.
to some kind of curated, even if unintentionally,
Sure.
persona,
Yep.
avatar
Yep.
online. We just simply cannot be our full selves.
And shouldn't in a lot of ways for safety and
Yes.
protection. I mean, people are not entitled to all of you simply because they send you a DM.
Let's talk about the difference between authenticity and transparency.
That. Oh, I love this because I get so much flack because people do get concerned that I'm not being authentic because
Mm.
like when, oh, well, you were going through divorce, but you didn't tell us when you left your house.
Mm-mm.
No, no, no. Oh, you got married and engaged, but you told us on a 6-month delay. Yeah.
Mm-mm.
Oh, your kids disappeared for a while. What's actually going on there? They are grown and living their lives and it's not your business. Like,
And
so,
this kind of
you
assumption of
know,
access
access.
is something that was deeply embedded in
Mhm.
media culture. So I don't individually blame people.
But how did that
I
happen to people then?
Sorry?
Like, how did that happen to people? Because 'Cause you're saying it's a media culture thing. Are we biologically is that a natural evolution when we start getting a
Mm.
sample of someone that we desire to want more?
Well, that's a loaded baked potato.
Yeah.
I would We could pull so many different elements out of
Sure.
that. What comes to mind is that sometimes I think it's easy for us to consume someone else's story, feel connected to them, and assume that this is a bidirectional mutual relationship.
Mm.
And so, even if I start to trust you based on what you've shared, you actually still don't even
Don't
know
know
I
me.
exist.
Yeah.
I don't know if we would actually agree on the things I'm assuming we agree on.
Mhm.
And so at best, you're still a projection, even if I'm trying to humanize you
Sure, sure,
fully.
sure.
So I think the screen between us it enables that illusion of separation, even if we're aspiring to be fully authentic. Now, here's where I think there are cultural trends around oversharing,
Mhm.
and you may be earnestly seeking connection. I mean, there are so many different categories of content creation now. You could
Mhm.
be cause based, where you're talking about a particular lived experience with a health condition and you're
Mhm.
trying to rally folks around and say you're not alone. Like there can be good intentions.
Absolutely.
Here's where we need to fill out the rest of the story. A couple of things to consider. One, the platform that you're posting on is
Mhm.
aggregating every single piece of data that you share and is used not only to determine the algorithm,
Mhm.
but also that might be used to profile you for the rest of your life as a consumer. It might
Mhm.
be used to document how your child behaved in that one day when your aunt posted like, so and so threw a tantrum.
Mhm.
That actually now might go into a system, be tracked and aggregated with other information about your young one
Mhm.
to make schools determine whether or not they'll admit them as a student for
Mm.
future professional pathways. So this data isn't innocent. It's
Mhm.
not the same as if
Mhm.
you and I, without this camera, are just meeting to have a heart to heart.
Right.
So we have to remember we're still incorporating some of these other entities.
Mhm.
And I think that can be really hard when the intention of the design is to make it seem like it's for human connection.
Community-based.
But
Mhm. Mhm.
we know that when the algorithm is starting to train us all, even when we're just trying to have our own small business pop off and now we're like, "Oh,
Mhm.
I have to use trending audio. Oh, I have to
Yes,
post 3 times on
yes.
TikTok every day."
Yes,
Like, how do you
yes.
keep up with this? Who's profiting? Come on,
Right, absolutely,
everyone.
like, they're not doing this for free. You know what I mean? They're not doing it for free, and I
The
think the
platforms
platforms,
are
they're making
profiting.
money big time. It's a corporation. They're traded on the stock market.
Yes.
They are the richest people in the world, and it's
Yes.
because of marketing and our data, and we're giving that up willingly, and as someone who I do share my kids, and I do but what's interesting is people often will think they're seeing more than they are. So,
Mhm.
that, from what you mentioned about filling in the gap of the relationship, on some level, it can be fine. It can be healthy within normal parameters. But I've also been surprised at where people will go. I
Mhm.
often will joke about object permanence, the psychological, condition of kids where if you move something and they don't see it, they think it's not there.
Mhm.
That absolutely extends to adults on the internet. If
Mm,
they don't see your kids anymore, they think, oh, your kids have disappeared. What has happened? And they
right.
forget that, your whole world is not for consumption,
Right, right.
and that at any point in time you can choose to change your mind.
Mhm.
And I think what was interesting, both in your book and in your advocacy is that agency element. Have, and I don't want to speak for the masses, but as someone who's been on the internet now I was like, my school was number 14 on Facebook. Do you know what I mean? So
Wow.
since back then, and it's interesting to see the evolution of it
Mhm.
because I still retain agency, but only because of when I entered in it. You know,
Mhm.
I've lived a life without a reliance and a consumption on this platform, but I look at my kids who feel like it is an obligation
Right.
to,
Yeah.
or even in LA, people meet you and they're like, "What's your Insta?" You know, and it's
Mhm.
part of the, and that seems odd to me conversationally, but they,
Mhm.
you know, "You didn't look up his social, like, before meeting him? I'm about to meet him." Go meeting his social doesn't mean I've met him already, you know what
Mhm.
I mean? So, knowing all of this and learning this and witnessing this and knowing that, you know, we just talked about corporations mining our data for their purposes, what responsibility do we have, I think, on different levels? You know, like, because you are legislatively and actively pushing for change as parents, as individuals consuming, and as part of the greater ecosystem. What responsibility do we have?
Building on being a responsibility, I also think it's an urgent opportunity
Sure.
to equip ourselves with the necessary information so that we can just make informed, discerning decisions.
Mhm.
So I'm not interested in naming, blaming, shaming caregivers. I mean, truly, whatsoever. That is
Mhm.
not my message.
Mhm.
It is, hey, if and as you share, did you know
Yep.
that when we hand this device to a young person, we're seeing these kinds of mental health outcomes? Not because there's something wrong with your child. In fact, your child's nervous system is responding exactly
It's
how it
working.
was designed to respond. The kind of addictive nature of always wanting to be on your phone, the insomnia from the blue light exposure, all of these different things. Also, another thing to be informed about is, in particular, with young people being captured online. Captured is such a strong choice word
It
there.
is strong, but I think it conveys exactly what's happening, you know, because when something is captured, you may not get it back, and I think that's really important.
And that's the direction I was going to head, which is digital footprints are permanent. And if we, I'm going to pull from, I think it's Jonathan Haidt's work. He talks about play based childhoods. And from my understanding, he's not just referring to being in a sandbox, he's referring to having an environment where there's enough anonymity, privacy,
Mhm,
space that a young person can be experimenting,
mhm,
can make some mistakes, and
mhm.
not have them documented in a
Yes.
way that ends up being, I mean, not only embarrassing, but maybe detrimental to,
Exploitative.
yes, exactly.
Yeah.
So I would love to see more people thinking about the holistic well being of their young ones and even the media they're consuming of children.
Mhm.
And no, I'm not looking for crusaders to be like,
Right,
go call out everyone on the internet,
right.
but we can privately decide we're not interested in this kind of content.
Mhm.
I'm actually, even though this baby is so adorable,
Mm.
I'm actually not gonna comment on this particular one because I took a
Mhm,
look at the whole page and
mhm.
something's not feeling
Listening to
right.
what we know.
Yeah,
Yeah, listening to what we
so
know.
increasing your overall digital literacy
Mhm.
and vocabulary for these things, and then coupling that with your values and remembering the status quo is gonna be upheld if we do nothing. And
Mhm.
so, if you're feeling some kind of resistance, if it feels complex, if it doesn't feel like an easy right or wrong, that's probably actually the space we need to be swimming in for a bit
Mm.
while we figure out what we want to do
Where we
about
wanna
it.
land.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And this is going to be something that we have to lean on each other for.
Mhm.
Like, yes, I can give you the data, I can tell you from lived experience. I do not wish that kind of high visibility on any young child,
Mhm.
truly.
Mhm.
And I'm gonna need to listen to the context of your life, to your intentions, to your values. We're gonna need to bring in the therapists. We're
Yeah.
gonna need to bring in, the tech designers.
Mhm.
We gotta get everyone
On board.
speaking
Mhm.
so that we can shift toward a society, towards technology, toward, all these different things being in service of human and planetary flourishing, not human and planetary exploitation.
And money and profiting.
Right.
Yes.
And we're not gonna be able to tackle the entire thing, but we actually can do quite a bit in our own sphere of influence.
Yes.
And I don't know about you, but I I remember a turning point was like, I can't wake up 10 years from now and still be exactly where I am on at this
Oh.
situation.
So that's what I wanna talk about is the turning point for you
Mhm.
because with your book coming out, I think that you are I was talking to my husband about it this week because we always talk about this because, I do have a public profile and we have kids, who've been on TV and done these things,
Mm.
but it's always been with the context of a lot of I have shut down shoots because we were not gonna film that scene that day because I was like,
Mm.
"Nope." I was like and I've also stopped things. I'm like, "It's 10 o'clock. It's bedtime." Like, I don't we're going to bed.
Right, right.
Like, I don't mom says, "I don't need there's no amount of money, there's no amount of fame," you
By the
know?
way, thank you on behalf of someone who didn't get any consistency or structure
Oh,
because of
yeah.
the beck and call nature of the industry, like,
Yes, yes,
that
no.
routine and structure.
Absolutely. Well, and also, like, I mean, we'll share our families. I'm imperfect, right? I've also learned where I was like, gosh, I don't know if I should have shared that one,
Right, right.
but there's always the retraction of it, and then also giving my kids autonomy. So my kids have actually disappeared from the internet, usually from the age I would say 16 to when they're ready to emerge on their own as adults.
Mhm.
Because I remember being 16 to 25, and the dumb
Right,
shit that I did. I thank God the internet wasn't around. Like I want
right.
to date, I want to mess up, I want to fuck up my eyebrows.
The
I don't
play-based
what I mean?
childhood.
Play-based childhood. So, everything you're saying really affirms, and it also makes me question because a lot of, I also get negative feedback where people are like,
Mm,
"Well, you're helicopter parenting," or "You
mm.
are, controlling too much." Like, my kids don't get phones until 16.
Sorry, I'm gonna be on the train with you on that one.
Yeah, it just isn't necessary, and so it's just one of those things where people say that it's not okay, and it also
Mm,
just I think, based on the data you're giving me, also says, have they bought into
mhm.
the machine that says, "No, you need these things?" Like, parents will literally say to me, "But what if they don't fit in with their friends because they don't know the cool TikTok?" So tell
Yes.
me about that. Like, what do I say to that?
Yes. I know that I am not the one to answer this question, but I know
Mhm.
other people who can help.
Yeah.
So there is someone named Dr. Devora Heitner.
Mhm.
She wrote a book called Growing Up in Public, and also a book called Screen Wise. And then there's Leah Plunkett, who's Harvard law professor and can speak to the legal side of what's going on
Yeah.
here around child rights, autonomy, digital and her book is called Sharenting.
We'll put this all in the, captions below because there is a lot of
Yes.
increased visibility around this now. I think Jonathan Haidt helped with that a lot,
Yes,
Anxious
yeah.
Generation is such a big chat,
Right.
so
So I
that's
do
huge.
think that there are lots of different voices,
Mhm.
Dr. Devora and Leah are just two, and they're able to recognize that this isn't necessarily something that we can just dismiss.
Mhm.
It's something we're gonna have to learn how to be collaborative about with the
Mhm.
young ones in our
Mhm.
lives. And some people, may lean more toward rigidity
Mhm.
and monitoring. That's, one
One way to
parenting
do it.
style.
Mhm.
But Dr. Devora offers, like, what would it be like for this to feel more like mentorship,
Mhm.
where the young person feels like they're a part of the decision-making
Mhm.
process? You ultimately know which hard lines
Yep.
need to be drawn, but the fact that you can start to have conversations about it and
Mhm.
not feel that sense of, "Ooh, I don't know anything about these tools that your child's,"
Absolutely.
and they come to you with a new game or a new this
Mhm.
every day, and you're
Every
like, "I
day.
can't even keep up with
Mhm.
the tech,
No, for sure.
and you want me to buy this, and now you're up till what hour? And
Mhm.
I thought I told you to go to bed 3 hours
It's a lot
ago."
that's really what it's like,
Yeah,
it's really
yeah.
like that, and I think, one of the things that's worked well in our household has been, 1, if we hold off till 16, you're actually equipped to have conversations, because you
Mm,
also have some lived experience that isn't with phones, versus me trying to naturally interact with, like, take away something that you've only ever known,
mm,
and then when we have
mm,
those conversations, we set parameters where we say, "Hey, you're 16 now, if you find your grade slipping, if you think that you're too distracted." Again, they know what that feels like because they have a
mm.
baseline
Reference
of
point,
not
love
having a
that.
phone. So, we have a cookie jar with a timer on it that we keep in the kitchen, and when they come home, if it's homework time and you wanna keep your phone by you, but I often find that the phone ends up in the cookie jar with the timer because they're like, "I was getting distracted too much," but they know
Yeah.
what that is
Mhm.
because they have a reference point?
Yes,
So,
yes.
I mean, and I hate to have and also we don't do any tech in bedrooms and, we leave it out,
I
all
need
that's
that
like
tech hygiene.
I need that look, I didn't say I follow it, I wish I did, but
Right,
for the
right.
kids,
Yeah.
it's no and that's just because there's nothing you should be doing there that you can't do. We always say, "If you aren't comfortable with it being in a billboard over our house, then don't
Mm.
do it." You know what I mean?
Well, I think this was in, the Anxious Generation,
Mhm,
and many people's literature now,
mhm,
but it's so interesting that societally we've grown more and more overall protective
mhm.
of letting young people go out and play in the neighborhood, and
Yes,
we're
yes.
very, very, very
It's not safe out
fearful.
there.
Yes,
Yeah.
right. But we have such low protection around giving them a device that gives them access to the entire
Well,
world.
that's what you're telling us the data has actually, stemming from really the media, the industry, the world. It's called social media,
Mhm.
right? The reason why is because we've been told that this is safe for you, this is good for you as a means to exploit us, to
Mhm.
be able to get our data, to be able to generate profit. So all of that is kind of woven into it, based on what you're sharing. And you go into it more in the book. And I want to talk about the change, right? Like as we kind of, because there's so much to consume here.
I
Yeah, I
know.
know. I'm like, we could literally go on all day because it's
Maybe
such
we
a
should
big
start a
deal.
different show.
I know. I was like,
Side
just like a
quest.
one-on-one chat. I'm like, okay, so she's here today to tell us how we gonna get our lives. Okay, get your life for your child today. Okay. So I want to know, when did the advocacy become so important for you? Like,
Mm,
was there something you saw? Were you just kind of like, I finally have, because you had to do your own healing, and
right.
we're daily. If something new will come. That's the worst part about therapy.
Forevermore.
I'll go eat a hot dog and I'll be like, no, I can't believe my dad left me at that baseball game. Now I'm in therapy for that for 3 years. You know what I mean? So I want to know for you, at what point were you like, it's not just about me, you know?
Mm.
I'm gonna make this, like, I'm putting this book out there because people need to know.
I'm gonna admit that I am reluctantly here,
Yes.
with the megaphone.
Mhm.
I would much prefer to be at home or in a cave.
It's also safer. I mean, it's crazy right now. Like, I will tell you, the way people will come for you for having any opinion that is rooted in, because people can't argue with both your training and your lived experience. That is very scary, for a media that is so profitable. You're like taking on, it's David and Goliath here, you know?
I mean, hey, you see it.
You got it. You
I
got it
feel it.
though. It'll be the 2 of us though. I'll be loading up your slingshot, sis.
Cool, cool,
Yeah,
cool.
and go for it. You know what
Well,
I
and
mean?
also, really, all I'm trying to do is, have a conversation with Goliath.
Yes, right. I love this about you. Like, you don't, I don't know if you guys are picking up the era. Alyson is, or the energy right here is like, Allison's like literally like, guys, can we just talk about how this might be a little bit a lot so that we
Well,
could just figure it out? Like, I want to
because
work with you.
think about it. Goliath
Yeah,
can reach places I can't
that is
reach.
so true.
Goliath can accomplish way
Mhm.
more. The velocity, this maybe not speed, I don't know how fast
Yeah.
Goliath is these
Yeah.
days, but,
Right.
can cover so much territory.
Sure.
So, by no means am I saying that we will always be able to transform the systems from the inside out, or
Mhm.
that we have to just go in and
Mhm.
politely request for change. Like, that's
Mhm.
not what I'm saying. However, if there are opportunities sometimes to align with people who are a part of the Goliath
That's right.
and say, hey, I'm going to assume that if you had this information, you would want to do better or do differently.
Right.
Because
Right.
there are so many people. I mean, think about, like, if we have loved ones who work for the giant tech companies, and,
Mhm.
like, a lot of people don't necessarily want
Of
to
course not.
be there, but they
Of
reach into
course.
every aspect of society.
Mhm.
And so I think being able to say, like, it's a both and type of thing.
Mhm.
So, Goliath, give me a call.
Yes, yes, you're like, "Here's the news. I just reach out to me. I
Yeah.
want us to figure out, you can still make your money, but we don't have to hurt everybody to do it,"
Right,
you
but and
know?
also maybe redistribute
A
the
little bit of that
resources.
money, we don't need billionaires.
Yeah,
I'll be the first one to say it. We don't need
I'll be the
billionaires,
second one to
okay?
say it,
We don't need billionaires,
and that might be controversial given I've now just
in this
learned
day
that
and
some of
age.
my peers are in that category, which is,
Yeah, that's tough. Yeah, we still don't need them. We don't need them. You're fine. There's not much that you can do with 1 billion that you couldn't do with half of that. Do you know what I mean? So,
or a
except change everyone's
quarter,
life, or a quarter,
an end world crisis,
And
and
just different conversation.
yes,
And
yes,
guys,
yes.
that's part 2. Tune in for part 2,
Advocacy,
advocacy.
turning point.
Yes.
So, some things that I'm thinking about in the timeline of events. First, when I had my own health spiral and I chose finally to be in treatment, so inpatient treatment, because
Mhm.
all of my other attempts outside, working with a dietitian for food and working with a trainer for a healthier relationship to exercise, it just wasn't enough to take on the extreme circumstance that I was in and the severity of my challenge. So eventually, being in treatment, that not only allowed healing and recovery from eating disorders, what it did was it shifted my environment long enough
Mhm.
that I had the privilege of a consistent routine space and time and adults who weren't on my payroll or who weren't
Right.
just yes people around me to be able to say, "Hey, can we pull some threads while we're here?" The eating disorder was a response to what? Didn't come out of
Absolutely.
nothing.
Yeah.
And so what happened was there was a particular therapist who helped me start to connect the dots that some of my challenges weren't just, solely I mean, trust me, I'm all for personal accountability. Like
Sure.
that's a
Of
huge
course.
integrity
Of course.
core value. And as a 17-year-old, the amount of responsibility I was heaping on myself was just it was
You are a
disproportionate.
baby.
A
17 is a baby.
a
Like,
baby.
come on.
So he helped me start to understand, okay, wait, if I want to do this sustainably, something's going to have to change. And
Mhm.
is that possible in this industry? And then when I started experiencing different kind of prompts to deconstruct my faith, and by the way, when I say deconstruct, that doesn't
Mhm.
mean eliminate.
Eliminate. Yeah.
It means
Explore
put
it in a
and
healthy way.
purify it, right? Put it
Yes.
through the fire and the truth will remain and
Yes.
everything else let it burn off.
Yes, take the human out of things that don't serve you, so that way you're able to actually have the purest relationship with your faith.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I was starting to then recognize through some mentorship, oh, hold on. I didn't know this, but this whole time, I've actually been kind of a puppet. I've been used a bit
Mm.
as a tool, even sometimes for propaganda.
Mhm.
And that started changing how I was
Mhm.
looking at the scripts I was reading.
Yeah.
Suddenly I was like, wait a second, let me do a little digging.
Yes.
Normally, as an actor, you do the digging on the producer, the director, and you're thinking about the creativity
Mhm.
and the vision
Mhm.
artistically. Suddenly, I was going, hold on, what harmful stereotypes are perpetuated in this person's writing, whether they
Ooh,
mean to or not? Hold on, this mental health condition is being depicted in this way, but that's actually
inaccurate and
it's
harmful.
inaccurate.
Mhm.
Yeah. Hold on. The military and the government are funding this
Oh,
project?
wow.
Okay, wait. I need to reassess
Mhm.
my position in this situation while simultaneously realizing I do, for whatever all the reasons, have this strange public platform. So, what am I going to do here?
Oh,
And so that's when I also simultaneously was starting to get some of my certifications in the mental health space. And I was like, oh, this is where the reluctance comes in. I'm like,
mhm.
please, someone else step up to the plate. Please, someone else talk about this.
No,
Please, it's
no.
so obvious. Please, someone else.
It's so you.
And no
It's
one,
so you. It's
no,
so you,
in
and we're
quite
so
this
lucky for it.
intersectional
Yeah,
way in terms of mental health practitioner and lived experience. There are other people who were child
for
performers who are
sure,
now therapists,
for sure.
but don't advertise it or
Absolutely.
speak publicly about it. So,
It's a blessing to have you in this space just because you also have a gift of, relaying things in a way where
mm,
I think you fuse, supportive data, practical, actionable task, but you infuse it with a level of grace
mm,
that, particularly as a mother, I need to be able to make it palatable because it's hard to make mistakes.
mm,
We are always trying to do our best, as parents, and we're fighting against digitalized code, that is faceless at times, it seems, while we're trying to do our best in the day to day. And the way that you are vulnerably and thoroughly sharing your stories to help us see what could be possible outcomes, but also seeing like the light and all of that, that someone like you who's been through, and y'all, when you read this book and you hear some of the stories and exposures and experiences that you just never deserved,
mm,
that you can still come out of all of that, it just lets me know, "Okay, well, I didn't do all that, so it's gonna be okay." You know what I feel like? I can figure this out,
mhm,
and then you give us the tools to do it. So that's, kind of where I always like to end on that note, if there was one big ask, right? If
mm,
there was one thing that you could ask of people to believe that they would act on, in relation to protecting their children genuinely, because we hear it all the time in the media right now. This will protect the kids. And if we do this, it'll protect the kids, and it's often from the very people that you were describing as benefiting from the exploitation of children. So, as someone who
mm,
has a history in advocacy, as well as could have benefited from that same support yourself, what can we do as
mm.
influencers, right? People with platforms, and also as regular people every single day. If there's one thing that you could ask, what would it be?
So the book will list specific to-dos.
Mhm.
What I feel compelled to share right now is, mm, first, let me say, if you're listening and your life is already so busy, I just want to name that adding something to your plate, or sometimes I think about it as a sheet of paper and the entire paper is covered in ink. There are no margins. So, like trying to introduce a new idea or a new behavior,
Mhm.
like, oof, good luck to any of us.
Yes.
So, I just want to name that and have understanding there and invite you to consider creating some room to explore the different cultural myths that you've inherited around childhood, success, family, uh, maybe faith and purpose, because none of these things prompted me to action while I was still swimming in the ocean of those beliefs. I didn't even feel any friction
Mm.
because I was going with the flow. It wasn't until I reflected on these beliefs, some inherited, some, I kind of remixed and made my own thing over the years. So I invite you and encourage you to allow yourself to release some of those myths. And I also want to note that when you're doing that, it's normal for a lot of uncertainty to come up because you're essentially removing the structure that's given you stability, or you might even be taking the foundation out from under you.
Mhm.
So when you're in that gray area, that liminal space, please keep going. Think about it like a car wash where, why, Allison?
Yeah.
Where, you're entering this container. There's lots of dirt, maybe we'll just call those the untruths for now.
Mhm.
And you're gonna go through a period of no visibility. There's gonna be stuff scrubbing at you, there's gonna be stuff refining, there's gonna be a really uncertain process. On the other side will be clarity, I promise, but please keep going. Be willing to go through that period of uncertainty. This isn't just about myths around childhood, it's really the human experience. If we're gonna try to empathize with anyone who sees things differently, if we're gonna try to show up in our lives differently, even though we've got these habits we've been carrying for years, there's gonna be some liminal space in the middle of the car wash. But just know you're just scrubbing away the
Yes.
untruths, and eventually
Will come up.
will come
Mhm.
out
On the other
with
side.
clarity.
Yes. Yes.
Hopefully.
Oh.
And if not, give us a ring.
I give us like we'll go back to the
Phone a
beginning.
friend.
Yes,
Yeah.
phone a friend. Someone can help.
Yeah.
Oh, I am so grateful to you, not just for the time that you've given us here and the bite-sized condensed version of the goodness, but for the fact that you took the time. The book birthing journey is a long, hard, and difficult one,
Takes one
and
to know one.
takes one to know one. And I am so thankful that you took on yet another thing. To make sure that we have this tool that we can
Mm.
discuss. And for those of you who have book clubs, this is a book club read. You
And I have a
know?
discussion guide that I made myself.
Oh, amazing. Is that available for people to
Yes, yes.
access? Okay, great. So we'll
Absolutely.
have all those details in the show notes, but this is the one, as we're headed back to school, as the kids are, going into another chapter, as you yourself are probably reevaluating your exposure, as we're all experiencing, political fatigue and, compassion fatigue, it just read this book to get some clarity on what to
Mm.
think about.
Mm.
It has absolutely changed my approach. I think it's made me a better mother. It's made me a more responsible user of the internet and influencer. And I just thank you so much for that.
Mm.
If to do nothing else but to honor what you've gone through so that no other child has to. So thank you so much, Alyson.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And God bless your articulation.
Takes one to know one.
I mean, hey, I'm over here like soundbite, soundbite, soundbite. Like, I much respect to your editor, but they might have the easiest editing
Oh,
job
I
on the
appreciate
planet.
it. Very, very. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.